Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. It's just after noon during the first week of e learning in my life. And e learning is a new feature that we started this year to replace snow days. But the reality of our world today is that e learning has replaced school this week. And that is in part due to the pandemic. The World Health Organization declared a pandemic of the coronavirus. And being on an e-learning week has given me a lot of time for reflection. And I have used this channel to share some of my favorite stories with students. I've read The Coffin Quilt. I read the poem by Pablo Neruda. I'm reading Pride and Prejudice right now to students. And I'm taking a moment right now as a teacher, but also as a citizen of the United States, just to pause and reflect on the importance of a story. Because when I look back on my life, there have been so many stories of other people that have impacted me. And some of those stories are fictional. Pride and Prejudice, it's a fiction, it's a novel. But some of them are nonfiction. And when I think about Anne Frank's diary, I think about um, I Have Lived a Thousand Years by Olivia Benton Jackson. I think about these stories written by teenagers during times that were unprecedented. And so right now, I just want to challenge my students to be journaling. Keep a diary, do a video blog, and think about your thoughts and responses to what's happening on this e-learning week. I've had some conversations with some students, and what they've told me is they're excited to come back to school because they're ready for that sense of normalcy. You know, when you hear, oh, we're going to go on break and have an extra week of spring break, that's a lot of fun when everything's open. But when the governor of Indiana in a news conference asks us to stay in our homes, when the president of the United States declares a national emergency and asks us to stay on our living room couches, that does change the trajectory of those breaks. And so, my brother Josiah, those of you who met him when he was a guest speaker a couple weeks ago, he challenged me this week when I FaceTimed him, and he said, "I think you need to be writing during times of hardship." Um, it's important for writers to write so that later we have something to learn from. And those stories end up manifesting in both nonfiction and fiction. But if we can record the feelings, if we can record the sights and the sounds and the conversations, we have something to build on later. And those stories are important. The story that keeps coming to my mind right now is The Grapes of Wrath. And I read it my junior year. I know at Jeffersonville High School, we teach Of Mice and Men junior year. That's the Steinbeck novella that we've chosen. But to my students who are home over break, if you're looking for a good book to read, I recommend The Grapes of Wrath. And I would love to read along with you and have conversations with you about that book. But it is a story that documents the Great Depression in the 30s. And that story is so important for us as Americans. It's not just literature. I mean, obviously, it has this beautiful literary merit because Steinbeck's such an amazing author. But the historical content that is contained in that story is important too, because it reminds us of what our country has survived before. And as I just reflect on the stories that I'm reading and the stories that I want to share, I want to encourage my students to share your story. The Today Show this morning had a piece on social distancing doesn't mean social disengagement. And they recommended that you call somebody and you just say, tell me your story. And that leaves it open. It can be your story about your struggle with maybe your academics, or maybe it's your story about how you found out that you were maybe different than some of your peers or some of your family, and you discovered that your sexual orientation is different, and that's your story. Or maybe it's your story about how E-learning has caused some major disruption to your life, and it's harder for you to learn virtually with a teacher who's not next to you to ask questions and have conversations with. Um, Maybe it's your story about having to step up and really help your family out. Maybe your parents work in the restaurant industry. Um, Maybe they are having to work more because they work for Amazon down the road from school and they have overtime right now. Whatever it is that your story is, I just encourage you to write it down or speak it, share it, record it. Our stories are important, and we collectively as a society have a story, as well as the individuals in our society that have stories. So during this break, in the next 2 weeks, after you're done with your e learning week this week, I encourage you to express yourself in some form. I know how creative you are. Create a masterwork of art to show and depict what life is like right now. Write a poem, write a letter, do a video blog, whatever it is for you. I just want to encourage you that your story is worth hearing. And to my students who might be home right now and maybe school is the safe place for you, it's not just learning and social activities, but it's really maybe you found a classroom where you feel safe, where the walls protect you and you can be yourself. Um, I want to give you some encouragement too, because I've always said I love all parts of you. Um, and I'm grateful for your honesty and vulnerability in my classroom. And I want you to know that I still care about you from a distance, social distancing. I do still love you guys, and I still want to provide a safe place for you to be yourself. So know that I'm thinking about you. And for those of you who are introverts who are so excited because you feel like you can thrive in this environment where you are self directed with learning and you're excited about just what you can do with your time and you don't feel so spent being surrounded by people every day in the hallways and classrooms, I'm thinking about you too. And so, wherever your story leads you this week, in the next couple of weeks, I can't wait to hear about it. So, I just challenge you to record your story and share it with us, whether that is writing it down or blogging or vlogging or on your Instagram story with pictures or those artists out there, keep drawing, keep writing. So thank you guys for your time and listening to my reflections on the importance of a story. You never know how your words and your actions might impact somebody else's life for the better. Love you all. Can't wait to see you again sometime um, in person and not virtually. I'll get back to Pride and Prejudice soon. Bye.